This is the last day of this June 2022 7-day session. I'm going to explore another koan this morning. This is from the Book of Serenity, Shoyoroku, and it's number 14. Attendant quo serves tea. Quo, the attendant, asked Deshan, "Where have all the Buddhas and ancestors of the past gone?" Deshan replied, What? Quo said, "I gave the command for a flying dragon horse to spring forth, but out comes only a lame tortoise." Deshan was silent. The next day, when Deshan came from his bath, Quo served him tea. Deshan patted him on the shoulder. Quo said, "This old fellow has finally gotten a glimpse." Again, Deshan was silent. This Deshan, spelled in the Roman alphabet as D-E-S-H-A-N, but the way these things work, the E is pronounced like a U, like Shan, Deshan. Seems to have been some squirrely thing that happened when the China during the Cultural Revolution was alienated from just about every country except what's that one? There's a Balkan country that Albania. Albania. Thank you, Albania, and as a result of that transmission from China to the Albanian language, this is how these things got spelled, just to be nettlesome to us forevermore, these pronunciations. But he is Deshan. He's of course Chinese, mastered almost all these masters, and all these koans are Chinese. But the Japanese rendered his name as Tokusan. That may be a more familiar name to some of you. So Deshan, or Tokusan, lived during the Tang Dynasty, the 800s and 900s. He's one of the very most famous of the Chan masters, especially the fire-breathing Chan masters. Just a little bit of material here. I see that as recently as last July, I read biographical material on him, but just to give a flavor of there was this phrase in at the end of the Tang Dynasty. Rinzai's stick, Tokusan's shout. Though Deshan held his own with the stick too. Here's one. Deshan said to the monks, "As soon as you ask, you have erred. If you don't ask, you're also wrong." A monk came forward and bowed. Deshan struck him. The monk said, "I just bowed. Why did you hit me?" Deshan said, "What use would it be to wait until you opened your mouth?" There are at least 4 koans that somewhat span the life of Deshan. They start with the first one is in the Mumonkan, where it's called Ryutan blows out a candle, and I'll try to stick to the Chinese Deshan because it's not that difficult to pronounce. It's not as bad as some others. So Deshan had earned a reputation as being the leading scholar in the Diamond Sutra. This is before he got into Chan. And also the Vinaya school, so both the precepts and the sutras, and would go around everywhere. Today we'd say he'd be going on lecture tours, lecturing on the Diamond Sutra. He came to be known as Diamond Shao. And he had heard about this new school, the Zen school, the Chan school, and how they just emphasized direct experience, outside words, outside the sutras. And it infuriated him. And he was a very strong, bumptious, carousing character. So he put all his books, his copies and commentaries of the Diamond Sutra, and set off, he said, to exterminate the lot of them, all these Chan practitioners. And then he met this woman, this old woman on the road, who set him back. She offered him a challenge, and he was tongue-tied. I'm going through these quickly, so we don't have time to go through them in detail. And it left him completely deflated and open to what he's been missing, what has been deficient in his Buddhist training, and it was the direct facing the wall. And then he arrived at the monastery of this Ryutan, and they talked deep into the night, and Ryutan finally said, "It's time for you to leave," and he headed for the door of the hut and saw that it was dark out, and he turned and said, it's dark outside. And Ryutan lit a candle, held it out, and as Deshan was about to take it, Ryutan blew it out. And at that, Deshan came to enlightenment. Next koan, featuring Deshan. And now he comes and he arrives at the monastery of Isan, another of the great big names. His Chinese name was Kuaishan. And what he does is he storms into the Buddha hall where Isan is sitting, Zazen. He storms in there, he stalks from one side of the hall to the other and just says, "Nothing, nothing." And he heads for the exit and then has second thoughts, and he comes back and he goes through the proper comportment for a monk. He takes out his bowing cloth and he says, "Master," Isan reaches for his whisk. It's one of these implements that these Chinese masters had to whisk away the flies, I guess. He reached for his whisk, and Deshan yells, "Quats!" and strides out. So this second koan is fresh. He's fresh off his experience, his deep awakening with Ryutan, with the blowing out of the candle. So he's still got all this piss and vinegar in him, this arrogance. They have a saying in Japan, I heard from Roshi, a saying that someone after an initial deep awakening is puffed up like fresh bread right out of the oven. Hasn't really settled yet. And then koan number 3 is where now Deshan, by all indications, is much older, and he's starting to head for the dining hall with his bowl in his hand, and the head cook, Seppo, confronts him. He's early, and Seppo says, "Where are you going with your bowl? We haven't hit the umpan yet, we haven't hit the gong." At which Deshan just turns silently and walks back to his room. There's that silence. And then Seppo, same koan, Seppo goes to a senior monk and tells him what happened, and this Ganto says, great master though he is, he still hasn't grasped the last word of Zen. Deshan hears about this and summons Ganto, and according to what the koan reads, when Ganto enters his quarters, he says, "Don't you approve of me?" And Ganto leans in and whispers in Deshan's ear. It would appear from the way the koan is structured, he's whispering the last word of Zen. And then the next day, Deshan was different. It doesn't say how. He was somehow different. And Seppo came forward, and that is in his talk. And Seppo comes forward, the cook, and says, the master has at last grasped the last word of Zen. And this is now the 4th in the series. I don't know for sure about the order, but here in this one too, it seems that Deshan is not young. So he had in his youth, this Deshan had a fearsome reputation, but now we see a different man, at least for this one story. So let's go back to the case. Quo, the attendant, and I don't know anything about this attendant, asked Deshan, "Where have all the Buddhas and ancestors of the past gone?" On the face of it, it might seem, it could be that he's asking, it's the same question that anyone might ask after someone has died. From my experience in talking with people over the years, and from my own experience, this is, for many, this is the burning question. Where did she go? Where is she now? Especially gripping soon after the death of the loved one. But we can't be sure. That's what the attendant is asking about. These koans are like coloring books, where you get the outline of what happened, the exchanges, And then it's up to the student working on it for Dokusan to color in the coloring book and to try to intuit what might be going on behind the words, the state of mind of these different characters. That's the most important thing, not the words. Deshan replied, "What? What?" That's the next point of the koan. How did he say that? I had to, just because I'm voicing it, I had to do it one way, but may have been a different way. And then Kuo comes back. I gave the command for a flying dragon horse to spring forth. This is a symbol of great courage and spirit from Chinese culture. The command for a flying dragon horse to spring forth, but out comes only a lame tortoise. So the very fact that he uses the word command, or at least that's how it's translated, I gave the command for this horse to spring forth, gives us a clue as to the attendant's initial question, where have all the Buddhas and ancestors of the past gone? And here, in reply, Deshan was silent. All kinds of ways to interpret that silence. The next day, when Deshan came from his bath, Kuo served him tea. Deshan patted him on the shoulder. Kuo said, "This old fellow has finally gotten a glimpse." And again, Deshan was silent. Think of this line from Affirming Faith and Mind. When this one mind rests undisturbed, then nothing in the world offends. There's some commentary on this koan in the Book of Serenity itself. In the published book includes commentaries by 2 or 3 different masters, and in one of them, the commentator is talking about the old Deshan, and he says, Deshan usually thrashed the wind and beat the rain, hollering at the Buddhas and reviling the patriarchs. This monk's errors filled the sky. Why did Deshan let him go? What is hardly realized is that he wrestled down oxen without using rope, killed people without using a sword. How many has he ever let go? The same commentator then says, Deshan keeps deaf and plays dumb, but even so, he gets the advantage unseen. The attendant covered his ears to steal the bell. What can be done for the unseemliness of the onlooker? And then the same commentator says, referring to the attendant, he is like trying to take the jewel from under the jet black dragon's jaw at the depths of the abyss, getting there just when the dragon is asleep. If the dragon wakes up, he'll surely be chopped into mincemeat. So, what about these two silences? Well, we can look to the words of another master, a famous master, Fol Guo, who said, Deshan really had ruthless hands and feet, but he saw that this monk was not a man to accept the hammer, so he stopped right away. Teaching in Zen, and no doubt in many other fields, is not just imparting information, but recognizing that a lot depends on the readiness of the student to hear what the teacher is saying. I only half-jokingly say that the first 3 days of Sesshin, I'm giving teishos, speaking in Dokusan, but most of it goes unheard. It's that first half of Sesshin, first 3 days, that is prying open the mind of the student, making her more receptive. So then more can be received later in Sesshin. And then, aside from that, everything depends on the maturity of the student as to what she or he can assimilate. This koan strikes me as one of the most heartful of the koans in our collections. There's a humanity here that is not often so evident in the koans. So many of the koans are this dharma dueling, and all the strong spirited pronouncements, the shouting, this makes me think of what Dogen, Zen Master Dogen, I think, said, the purpose of Zen is to develop a tender heart. It also calls to mind different issues with respect to age. We don't know the age of the attendant, but something that, just going by intuition, it sounds like he's got more years ahead of him than behind him. Makes me think of some of these nature movies, documentaries. I saw one, some episodes of one not long ago called Wild Babies, and it's basically about family systems of animals. It's very little mortal combat. The mortal combat you see in so many of these nature documentaries. And it's more about parents and children and siblings and packs and tribes, including sibling rivalry. It's marvelous documentary. It's full of human nature. It's all animals, but it's full of human nature. And I think of these scenes of the young cub, the tiger cub, or the young monkey harassing the mother or father, and the parent just kind of enduring it, putting up with it for a while until just whack, get out of here. Get out of here, kid, you bother me. But Deshan doesn't even do that. A young Zen student can present a good understanding of this koan, but how deeply can he or she appreciate Deshan and his silences? There's when speaking of generational differences, there's a basic asymmetry where the older member of the species knows what it's like to be young. She's been there. Whereas the younger one doesn't know what it's like to be old. Not really. The younger person can imagine, can read about it. It's sort of like a non-parent can never know what it is to be a parent. A non-grandparent can't know what it is to be a grandparent. Try as we might, it is not within our experience. The elderly know many of the sufferings of youth. But the same can't be said quite the same way of young people knowing of the sufferings of age. The way the systems break down over the years. What are those systems? The circulatory system, respiratory system, muscular system, skeletal system, reproductive system, neurological system, whatever they're called. I'm drawing from junior high here. But they get more and more obvious as the wheels come off. If we're lucky, just gradually, little by little. And the elderly know the joys of youth, to the extent that we can remember them. Although one, for sure, can't quite know is all of the anxiety stoked by social media. I feel such sympathy based on a lot of reading of what young people go through with social media. It just sounds like a lot of suffering involved with that. But we probably remember the daring of youth and the recklessness of youth. We men may remember with regrets how testosterone fueled a lot of what we did, mistakes we made, injuries we suffered. Young people can't know the wide perspective of the elderly who have weathered decades of hardships and losses, physical losses again, loss of the physical body, mental losses, but also the deaths over these decades, deaths of people dear to them, to the elderly, parents, friends, siblings, students, teachers. As we do get older, we can think back, and sometimes with regrets, of how blind we were. I think of Roshi Kapleau, of course. He was 35 years older than I was, and sort of became a second father. And to see him age and have some sympathy, but never. How could I have understood that? How could I have understood what that really means? But in exchange for the losses is this detachment, let's call it that, detachment that is attachment of having had to bounce back from so many mistakes and the whole dyad of winning and losing and gaining and losing. I've heard more than a few new parents say they never appreciated their own parents until they became parents. It's such a blessing when you're young to be able to imagine, not just getting old, but what death might mean. This is a great spur to practice, of course. There's something, I'm really fishing here now, I'm unprepared. It's something I photograph of a skeleton in, I don't know, some medieval monastery. And the caption, this is from hundreds of years ago, the caption under the skeleton is, I was once like you, you will once be like me. But who would want to change? Even if we could, who would want to change these generational differences? Look what these reckless, daring, often arrogant youths, and who can look back and say we weren't, have accomplished because of their daring, because of not having lived long enough to know the dangers there could be. The arrogance comes from the same thing, not having lived long enough to know how little we know as youths. I'm still talking about this koan too. Will Rogers, the humorist of earlier 20th century, said, "Good judgment comes from experience, and a lot of that experience comes from bad judgment." From making mistakes. There was some kind of a Middle Eastern sage, I'll say the name in case it means anything, Abud of Omdurman. He was asked, which is better, to be young or to be old? He said, to be old is to have less time before you and more mistakes behind. I leave you to decide whether this is better than the reverse. You'd think maybe that as we age, we're more likely to want to practice. And we see that happening sometimes as people come to appreciate the wisdom of Bodhidharma himself, saying anyone who has a human body is an heir to suffering and a stranger to peace. But just through life experience, seeing more and more the indisputable wisdom of the Dharma, just impermanence, start with impermanence. But unfortunately, too often, as we age, it's not just our body that gets stiff, it's the mind, and habits get set, and it becomes harder to change for some. And then these silences. First, being clouded by this attendant, denouncing him for not coming back with what he thought would be a better reply, or the reply that he imagined should be coming, and then silence. And then that marvelous, marvelous moment where Guo serves him tea after he comes out of the bath, and he pats him on the shoulder. There's a passage I've read, I see 3 times before over the years. At least 3 times I marked it. But it's been a while. It looks like it's been for 6 years. I haven't read it. So those of you who have heard it before, I hope you will indulge me. It's by Edgar Lee Masters, American writer who died in 1950, talking about silences, different kinds of silences. I have known the silence of the stars and of the sea, and the silence of the city when it pauses, and the silence of a man and a maid, and the silence for which music alone finds the word, the silence of the woods before the winds of spring begin, and the silence of the sick when their eyes roam about the room. And I ask, for the depths of what use is language? A beast of the field moans a few times when death takes its young. And we are voiceless in the presence of realities we cannot speak. A curious boy asks an old soldier sitting in front of the grocery store, "How did you lose your leg?" And the soldier is struck with silence. Or his mind flies away because he cannot concentrate it on Gettysburg. He comes back jocosely and he says, "Oh, a bear bit it off." There's the silence of a great hatred. And the silence of a great love. And the silence of a deep peace of mind. And the silence of an embittered friendship. There is the silence of a spiritual crisis, through which your soul, exquisitely tortured, comes with visions not to be uttered into a realm of higher life. There is the silence of those unjustly punished, and the silence of the dying whose hand suddenly grips yours. There's the silence of those who have failed, and the vast silence that covers broken nations. And vanquished leaders. And there's the silence of age, too full of wisdom for the tongue to utter it, in words intelligible to those who have not lived the great range of life. Yeah, we'll stop now and recite the 4 vows.